Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am so incredibly excited to be here with you today. It is such an honor to be presenting with all of you and for SANS. I just want to do a quick level set thing here. Let's see, I am struggling to control the slideshow. There we go. Okay. So just a little bit about myself before we jump into all of the good stuff here, which I know you guys are very excited for. I'm an intelligence analyst. I've been focusing on open source intelligence and social media intelligence gathering techniques for pretty much the entire duration of my career thus far. Using all of these wonderful skills, I get to work with law enforcement, a lot of nonprofit organizations, community organizations, all to research, train, and then help investigate various criminal cases. As Nico said, I'm the Special Investigations Manager for the National Child Protection Task Force, and I am also the proud new owner of ClickSafe Intelligence, which is an analytics firm dedicated to sourcing dark web, child predator chat forum content. I couple that with predator and victim messaging app conversations, and then parse out trends, patterns, really anything that can then be molded into more illustrative, evidence-driven online safety training for parents, kids, and child protection staff. So again, quick level set before we really jump in here. The world is really, really big. So unfortunately, I only have 40 minutes with you today. So I'm going to cover as much as I possibly can, but I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on methodology. As we all know, that is the most important part of open source investigations. I will give you some tools and resources to leverage, but remember, like Christina said during her talk, these are just tools. They are a means of validation as you go through your investigative process. But what I will say is, if you like this, please let me know either in my hallway, DM me on Twitter, because I have some exciting things in the work to be able to craft some more international open source training for you guys, if this is beneficial and something that you're interested in. All right, so here's our agenda. We're going to start with social media, dive into public records, do a little bit of geolocation work, talk about language and translations, and then some vehicle resources as well. All right, so let's get cracking here. So social media, as most of you are well aware and probably would agree with me, this is almost one of our greatest assets as digital investigators. Again, I'm going to focus a little bit more on methodology and prioritization versus technical skills here, since a lot of us really have spent a tremendous amount of time cultivating our social media investigative skills and techniques thus far. There is incredible variance throughout the entire world, and even more so, there are some regional variances that exist in terms of social media usage. However, there are some tools that do, platforms, I guess, that do stand out above the rest. And so we're going to kind of walk through some of those. No surprise, at the top is Facebook. This has roughly about 36.9–37% of the world's population using this platform as one of their primary social media tools that they use. It is blocked in China, Iran, and Syria. And the top countries that use this are the US, India, and Indonesia. YouTube comes in second. This is actually ranked as the largest search engine after Google because of the range of content and both the number of content creators and the variations in content that's posted to the platform. There are roughly 50 million content creators uploading video to YouTube, and roughly 500 hours of video is uploaded to the platform every minute. Again, top countries of use similar to Facebook are US, India, and Indonesia. WhatsApp comes in third. This is used in over 180 countries. It's no longer just for personal communication, but it's actually begun to be used widely for businesses to communicate with their customers. And the top countries of use here are India and Brazil. Instagram comes in fourth here. This is the most downloaded app in the world currently, second only to TikTok, which we'll talk about next. The biggest share of users currently are actually 18 to 34-year-olds. Purportedly, Instagram is Generation Z's favorite platform, and Gen X is actually the largest growing audience for Instagram in terms of usage. Top countries are India, the US, and Brazil. Next is WeChat, and this is no longer just a messaging app. There is a wide array of different things that you can do on the app, including make phone calls, shop online, pay bills, buy groceries. You can even transfer money. China is the top ranking country in terms of usage, but the rest of Asia comes in second and outranks the rest of the world in usage. And last but not least, TikTok. This recently overtook Google as the most visited internet site and is actually one of the fastest growing apps in the entire world. About 48% of TikTok users in the US are ages 10 to 29. So if we kind of make a little bit of a generalization, there's a good possibility that that age range exists in terms of usage in other countries as well. And then top countries of use are the US, Indonesia, Russia, and Japan. So as you can see, there is a pretty clear pattern here in terms of usage and what countries use these platforms the most and what countries use social media platforms in general the most. So with this information, what can you do with this? How can you use this to your advantage? And more so, where do you even start, really? So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I have 3 questions here that when you are getting started in the social media component of your international investigative work, I want you to think about here to help you determine which platforms to leverage and which platforms to ignore and how to prioritize them. So the first question is, what's your location? Do you know the location of your target? If you do, most of the research into how social media is used around the world is categorized primarily by country. However, there are some regional variances, like I mentioned, that are very specific to, certain places and certain countries in the world. So I want you to make sure that you're doing some recon and some research, not only into the continent, the country, but also the region and even, the city of your target's location to be able to ensure that you're going after the social media platforms that are the most relevant to that target and that location that they are currently in. Second is age of your target. On the last slide, we discussed the differing age groups and generations that are using the platforms the most. There may be some of which that were surprising to you. So make sure that you're factoring this into how you're choosing which social media platforms to dig into and which you're going to leave by the wayside. And then last is time frame. What point of time are you concerned with? Are you looking for current usage? Are you looking for a large swath of historical usage? Or are you looking for a specific year? Because platform use can change over time, knowing what platforms in what countries and regions were popular at any given time can help you determine where to start and how to prioritize the platforms that you're going after. So the graphic I have for you here on the right is from StatCounter. And this is a tool that allows users to view the most popular and widely used platforms by country simply by clicking on the map. You can also navigate, as you can see there at the top, there's the list of years. You can navigate to specific years and you can see how that changes over time. For this particular example, I called out Kyrgyzstan. And you can see as you look through that timeline there from 2008 to 2020, we have a shift from Odoklasniki to Facebook to VK and then back to Odoklasniki. If I pronounced that wrong, please do not crucify me. I looked it up and found 3 different pronunciations. So I chose the one that was easiest to write phonetically. So please forgive me there. So all this to say, I want you to make sure that you are leveraging a lot of different sources and tools when you are doing this kind of social media country-specific recon, because as you can see here, the time frame only goes to 2020, and we clearly have some platforms missing here. So it's a great starting point, but make sure you're digging into what platforms are popular in which countries from a few different sources. Okay, let's dive into public records here. So get rid of my cursor there. So this for me, in my opinion, is one of the most difficult parts of international intelligence gathering. And what I mean, public records and background information is address, phone number, email, all of that stuff. And so that's where we're going to start with here in terms of general records. There's so many variations in how records are maintained and what records are maintained across the entire world that it becomes really, really hard to know what to find and where to find it. So these are just a few resources. They are not necessarily dig in, press a button type tools, but this is to get you into kind of a broader frame of mind and thinking how you can creatively get at records and learn what to look for. So let's start with general records and Quora Group here. Again, general records, I'm going to talk address, phone number. Quora Group is actually a site that's dedicated to offering background records for employers when they're checking into prospective employees. So their records go back 7 years. You do have to have an account to search with them. There are no sign-up fees, no subscription fees, and no minimums. However, you do pay per search with them. And that cost is going to vary depending on what exactly you're looking for. Some records do require authorization from the search subject to dig into. Obviously, as open source investigators, we do not have access to that, so that has to be factored in. And then most records are not instant. There is going to be a couple day to a week-long turnaround time when you're using this site. And one thing I want to call out is this is all public data. They are not hacking anything. They are not breaking into government databases. What they are doing is actually sourcing from either data mining, third-party companies who buy public record information, and then they just organize it and categorize it and log it, or they're putting a request in directly to that government entity on your behalf and requesting records that are public. So I wanted to call that out because we know that there is a little bit of, differing opinions on what is considered open source. In my opinion here, you are not, even though you're going behind a paywall and you do have to put a request in, you do not need a court order, you do not need a search warrant, you do not need a subpoena. You just have to jump through a few extra hoops to get a hold of this. And then let's dive into criminal records here. So the International Criminal Court, this is going to be focused specifically on really nasty crimes. We're talking like war crimes, something that is prosecuted on a global level. So the database of individuals probably isn't going to be that big. However, we do, as OSINT investigators, look at some individuals who may not be so nice. So you might get lucky with this, but don't forget about familial pivoting, right? We oftentimes leverage family members to be able to locate information on our subjects or target subjects. So you might find an uncle, a cousin, somebody who is worse than your subject when you're looking into this. So keep this in your back pocket for criminal records. And then Papillon Foundation is actually really cool. So this is geared towards, the purpose is to help people understand around the world the complexity and how far spread criminal records can be when they're seeking expungements of those records. So what this actually gives you is a really nice repository of various sites where criminal records are maintained around the world. There isn't necessarily a site for every single country within the world, but there, make sure that it is a checkbox on your list that you're going through, and go in and play with that to see what types of different criminal records are housed and where they're housed and things like that. So think of this again as like your general repository. And then last year, many of us know the benefits of global and historical genealogy records. A couple here just to call out for you guys with a few nuggets of information. Family Search is ranked as one of the best options. One of the best free options. It does require a login, and you are only authorized to create one family tree per account. So if you're doing multiple subjects, you may have to create multiple accounts. Archives is ranked as the best for deep dive research. They do have international records, and their monthly pricing is about $10 a month. But if you have a lengthy investigation, you pay the $10, you get in, you have your month-long time frame, deadline, and then you get out for a pretty low cost. And this is actually pretty low compared to other sites as well. They do also offer a 7-day free trial, so that's something to keep in mind. Lastly, here is ancestry.com. This is ranked as best overall because of the ease of the user interface, the depth of the info. If you wanted to create a subscription or a login where you're paying for it, US-based records are $24.99 a month, and then global records are $39.99 a month. And then last but not least, which I don't have on here, is Find My Past. And this was ranked best for European records, specifically the UK and Ireland. All right, so let's talk about phone numbers here. So I have 3 resources for you here. The first, I'm going to go from most robust to least robust. So this first one here, World Telephone Numbering Guide, is fantastic because they offer historical information and a great overview on country-specific changes to the structure of phone numbers, right? So if you are looking over a large period of time, this can help you determine kind of maybe how your subject's phone number has changed over time and why there might be a variance in numbers that you have for them, or a variance to help you know where to look in terms of finding an additional phone number for them. They also offer regional specific information to help you ascertain a better idea of where somebody might be located within an overall country. And then they also give you the ability to look up a country code, so you don't have to come to the table knowing the specific country code for the phone number that you are researching. Second here is Numberville, much less robust than World Telephone Numbering Guide. You can select a country, you don't have to know the country code. You plug the number in and search. And then Comfy, least robust here. You have to come to the table knowing the country code of the phone number you're searching, but it's a basic plug-in and hit the button and go. I'm sure there are a couple of you thinking, well, why would you give me resources that are so rudimentary? There are so many good ones out there. These are easy to access, they are quick, they are user-friendly. And as investigators, we always have to make sure that we're doubling down on our intelligence, right? We have to make sure that we're validating what we're finding, and different sources offer us different results. So make sure that when you're searching your phone numbers, just like with US intelligence, you double down and you use a couple of different sources to make sure that your results are valid. Next is record overview. And what I mean by this is when you're going through public records and trying to figure out what to search, how do you even know what you can search within every single country in terms of public records? What do they have? Where do they file it? Who do they keep it on? These two sources can help you dig into that a little bit. So public records.search systems allows you as a user to choose a country, and then it details out every single public record that is maintained within that country for all citizens. You can then take the titles of those records that they offer and then replug those into Google. So you're searching exactly by the title of whatever that record is. It's going to ensure that your search is a lot more tailored and it's specific to the records that are contained within that country. Next is RTI rating, and this is a little bit unique and interesting. This is a site that ranks countries and gives them a score. They're scored based on 61 different data points and then bucketed into 7 different categories. And the purpose is of this site to rank all of these countries regarding the framework of the overall right of access to information by citizens within every country, based on how well, easily, and successfully citizens can access information that's held by public authorities in any specific country. So what does this do for us as investigators? Basically, this is going to help you better understand the likelihood of finding and accessing records for your subject located in particular countries outside the United States. The higher the score, the easier and more likely you are to find records for your subject within that given country. So just a quick takeaway here. Obviously, every country is going to collect and maintain different types of public records. Every country uses social media a little bit differently, and access to all of this information is going to widely vary depending on a lot of different factors, including privacy concerns, information protection laws, even access to technology impacts the types of records that are maintained and the types of records that we're going to be able to find. So unless you know your target's location very well, say you've lived there for a number of years, there's a high likelihood that you're going to have to deviate from your nice little linear US intelligence checklist and take a pause, take a breather to do some additional research into your country as a location, not just hunting down your records, but you might have to look into where are they using this type of social media the most? What's the most popular platform here? What type of records do they maintain? Who keeps them? Where do I look? How do I get a hold of them? These investigations often take a little bit longer, but doing that research is going to help you ensure that you're not diving down rabbit holes that aren't going to be lucrative for you. And it's going to help you have a higher likelihood of getting a hold of the records that you need. Okay, let's dive into some geolocation work. So I'm probably one of the only individuals on the face of the planet to say this, but I love geolocation work. The benefits are so incredible. And if you're framing your investigation in the right way, you can use so many of the tools and yes, tools, but also the techniques and the methodology behind geolocation investigations to help you with any sort of investigation that you're doing, particularly international ones. So everything from finding the location of a video to time dating a photo, people, places, things. I mean, sky is really the limit here. It's obviously very much an art over a science, and it's an extremely meticulously manual process. There are a lot of apps and tools that are making this easier for people, a couple of which I'm going to talk to you about, but they're never going to perform the same way that like an email lookup tool will, because it's the methodology that really supports and creates the foundation behind a geolocation investigation. So again, some questions here to help you think through and build the framework around how you're attacking your international investigation. First, what's your goal? Are you locating a subject? Are you determining when and where a photo was taken? Are you trying to timestamp a video? Figure out what your goal is. Make sure you keep that in mind and have that guide every single thing that you're doing in order to ensure, again, you don't fall down one of those rabbit holes that's not going to lead you anywhere. Next is what are the individual components? If you're looking at a photo and you're looking at a video, you have to break that down. You have to pull that apart, document them, and make sure that every single resource that you're using is leveraged for every single one of those components, right? You have to be able to use every single piece of what you have as an investigator to be able to chase the information that you're going after. Next is documenting and laying out your truths and assumptions. So this is kind of a three-part question. The first is, what do you know to be true about this? So let's take the photo. What do you know to be true about this photo? What do you believe to be true? And then what is unknown here? This is going to help you structure how you're going after information. Again, prioritizing what you're doing first and how you're chasing things and how far you're going to chase them. So for this pool, I know that this is a pool. I know that there are children in this pool. What do I believe to be true? I think this is probably a public pool, but it's very possible that this belongs to a very wealthy individual and they're having a big old birthday party. And then what is unknown? I have no idea where this pool is, right? So detailing out some of those questions is going to help you figure out where you need to go. Beyond that, what can I analyze with a tool? So looking at this photo or looking at that video, figuring out what tools you can use to automate your search processing and check some of those boxes a little bit faster is going to help guide your investigation as well. So let's talk about some of those tools and those resources. I'm going to start at the top left and work my way kind of counterclockwise from there. So first is drone footage. This is fantastic for both public landmarks, just like Google Earth, some of those different types of resources. But because people leverage their drones in their own backyards and in more private residential areas, you're going to get a really nice wide swath of video for comparison to some of those other photo and location-based tools that maybe only present you public places and public video and footage and things like that. So making sure that you're leveraging this to be able to compare is a great resource for you. Video, oh my gosh. So remember back to earlier in the slide, 50 million content creators, 500 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every day. People upload so much stuff to YouTube. It's not just kids opening Easter eggs and unboxing toys and playing with them. You've got family videos from public venues. You've got GoPro footage from runs, from bikes, from hikes. So many different things that you can help compare and see different shots of a landscape, different events that happened in a particular place. So please don't forget about YouTube as a search engine. And then Instacam here, this is a directory of online surveillance and security cameras. There is nothing private here. Any private feeds that get uploaded are taken down by the site immediately. And these are just publicly available cameras that you can log into anywhere in the world and check out a street view. Next here is object recognition. Obviously, I listed Google Lens because it is so easy to use and readily available. You also have Image Analysis Toolset, or IAT. This is something that's really specific if you need an Android specific tool. So keep that in mind for all of you Android users, but there's also so many other object recognition applications out there. You have some for plants, you have some for animals, you have some for vehicles. Like there's so many different, very specific categories. So do some research on those. If you're constantly looking at pictures with plants in them, play around with all of the different foliage recognition tools that are out there. My husband has a bird one that he uses far too often, but he loves it and it is insanely accurate, I will say. Next is photo sites. We're going to go back to the top. So Yandex is obviously typically one of the first go-tos for doing international geolocation investigations when there is a photo involved. But don't forget to turn to social media when you're searching photos. You don't have to have a subject to search social media for specific things. People, the way that they use social media, think about kind of the psychology behind this. We share content that is specific to us and that is special to us. So if you're going to a Yandex or you're going to a Google, you're going to get more publicly available space shots, right? These are going to be landmarks. They're going to be places that people venture a lot of time. But social media, if you're searching words, phrases, hashtags like playground equipment or pool or private pool or backyard, different things like that within a certain country, you're more likely to be able to see into somebody's life and potentially find that exact yard or that exact house that you've been looking for on social media, because it's much higher likelihood that the photos of somebody's home, inside somebody's home, in the backyard of somebody's home, are going to show up on social media versus something like Yandex. All right, satellite imagery. So these are publicly available. These are, again, are not privately used satellite imagery sites here. Leveraging this additional tool set just is going to give you more comparison, just like with the drone footage, into some of those places that perhaps Google Street View isn't going to get you, or you take that information, you compare it to Google Earth to look at changes in a geography or a landscape over time. Again, it's all about stacking the validation and looking for those little pieces and those breadcrumbs to figure out how something has changed, or how something has shifted in a way that's going to help you pivot to an additional piece of information that's beneficial to you. Lastly, here we have location estimation. So what you do here is you upload a photo and the tool is going to estimate the location of where it is in the world. This is not perfect by any means. It's still kind of in baby stages right now. You're gonna have to do a lot of validation here, but the technology is getting better and better and better. And again, this is just another weapon in your geolocation or your international investigative arsenal. All right, come on, nope. There we go, okay. Translation. So if you look at the quote at the top here, this is I intentionally chose a very poorly written, this was a review for a restaurant because I wanted to see how the translators that I leveraged handled this. I wanted to see what the differences were with something that perhaps in English wasn't written perfectly, right? So we have a tons of variance in translations. What we can see here from the English translation to the French translation, you can see that even if you don't know French, just based on the lengths of the translation, the French translations here. I did, just for fun, take all of these French translations and then throw them back into Google Translate. And it was interesting that the only variance that came up was in the use of great versus excellent when in the second sentence, when this individual says we had excellent service. So that was kind of interesting. Make sure that when you're doing translation work, double down, use a couple of different systems, and then go ahead and run that back through a few systems as well to see what type of variance there is and make sure that that's being factored into what you're looking at and how you're looking at things, how you're interpreting things. I'll go through just a few nuggets of information about each of the translators here. Google Translate, free, easily accessible, very simple UI. It's fantastic. You really can't beat it. They offer 109 languages, and they also have an app as well for mobile translation. Translate.com, this offers machine and professional translation via a language expert. You get a turnaround within about 2 hours, and it's only about 7 US cents. They offer more than 90 languages, and then they also offer their API for developers and varied price options if you need large-scale translation of documents or full websites. Bing supports a total of 40 languages. They also allow for downloading of language packs for offline use. And then they also offer widely used phrases. So think regional dialect, vernacular slang, that type of thing. And then DeepL, they only offer 26 languages. However, they offer file translation. So PDF, Word documents, PowerPoint documents, they will translate those documents for you as well. They also have a pro version you can try for free. And then they do also offer their API for developers as well. So a few things to consider when you're approaching translation. Obviously, we have slang, we have regional dialects, we have just language idiosyncrasies. The way people talk, even just in small groups to one another, is going to vary greatly from person to person, from region to region, from country to country. So thinking through that, making sure that you're not forgetting about that in your investigation. We also have situations where there's no direct one-to-one translation for particular words. And this can skew a translation. This can present hiccups and obstacles that you have to overcome. So make sure you're thinking about that and doubling down on the translation mechanisms and tools that you're using. And then we also have issues where there's multiple terms in one language for a single term in another language. So just as a quick example here, I looked up the word swimming pool in Vietnamese just for fun. And Vietnamese has 7 different ways to say pool. Now, if you then factor in all of the different kind of phrases and terms that we in the English language have for pool, you've got community pool, public pool, spa, swimming pool, splash pad, water park, kind of different variations of a pool, your list just multiplied exponentially. And these are all words and phrases that you would then have to take and funnel back into your searching of photos to try and geolocate a photo. So make sure as you're doing translation work, thinking through those idiosyncrasies about languages and documenting every single word that you need to search so you don't forget what you've searched and then you're not duplicating your work later. Okay, let's dive into some vehicle resources here. So these are really just standard tools here that I have for you. They are fantastic. I love them. I use them all of the time. And little less methodology here in terms of approach. So world license plates, you get the ability to view current and historical license plates from every country in the world. You can also match sightings of subject vehicles based on registration markers to identify where an image was most likely taken, helping you to better ID that country, or that vehicle's country of origin. Plate recognizer, very similar, uploading a photo, looking at different plates to figure out what plates exist in the world. You do have to have an account to access this. Shop license plates, this is a little bit different. This is actually going to give you a kind of repository of both current and vintage and historical plates that you can look at, along with various collectibles as well. Not that that's as important, but these are all categorized by country, and then they present you with a year as well. So if you're looking at a historical vehicle that's a little bit older, this is a great way to compare license plates to figure out what country they came from. And then lastly here is license plate mania. This is very, very similar to the others. Lots of photos of plate pictures from around the world. However, one nugget of caution here is the last additions were made to this in July of 2020. So use this as kind of like an additional backup validation tool, but you're not going to be able to get quite as much recent information from that site. Okay, let's talk vehicle recognition now that we're done with license plates. So Carnet is a site that you can upload an image, and the site is going to identify the make, the model, and the generation of the vehicle. They say that it works with roughly 97% accuracy, and they have vehicle information dating back all the way to 1995, which is great for historical lookbacks. This is a paid program, however, it is about $10.99 per month to use the site. And then vehicle history, and this is what I have on the right here for you. what you have the ability to do is if you say, hey, I know my target vehicle is an Audi, I think it's the 2015 Q7. I'm going to plug that in and see what I have. What this offers you is a ton of different varied angles, photos of varied angles of the vehicle that you searched to compare to your target vehicle. And then you can also click through and change the color options as well. So not quite as like it doesn't identify the vehicle for you, but it's a great comparison tool to help you determine the make and model of a vehicle that you're looking at. Next here is IDEA, and this is fantastic. I love this. They do offer a free web demo that you can leverage. I don't know, I've never been stopped after a certain number of times. So hopefully it's not a situation where if you do it too much, they're going to kick you out. I haven't had that happen yet. So what you do is you upload a photo, or you can input a vehicle photo URL. They give you 4 different options here. You can see that in the middle photo that says localized vehicle. 2 of those options are automatic detectors, which are going to find, the system is going to find the vehicle in the photo itself, as well as the license plate if it's visible. The other 2 are manual, where you drag and draw a box around your vehicle. This is a great option if you have multiple vehicles in a photo, kind of like across the top here. You drag and drop the box around the vehicle that you specifically want to look at. What you end up getting here is this beautiful little output, and you can see it even is able to say this is the front of the vehicle. We have a car, sedan, the make is a BMW, model is 2, generation is F87. So that's kind of the output that you get for the vehicle that you're digging into here. And surprisingly, I ended early. Can't say that I was expecting that to happen. I know I have so much more that I would have loved to share with you guys. Again, the world is a very big place. So I had to pick and choose what to give you today, but I hope that there was beneficial information that you could take away and help build out your international search investigations. And again, please let me know if this is something that you're interested in more of, so I don't spend a ton of time continuing to build training for you guys if you don't need it, and if you feel like you're all set on international OSINT. So thank you so much for having me.